Sheila here with Sirius Dallas Moon. This is Mars, our Venus day, and ascendant is 17 degrees Sagittarius on the ascendant of United States, because why not? Midheaven 1 degree Libra, in between, no, releasing from opposition to Neptune, and Venus 8 degrees Virgo, slowly approaching Ketu. Now, I want to do a little episode about the targeted individuals because first of all, I'm only learning about the topic myself, and it's kind of like people go through that for several decades. My mother went through that. Probably my entire family goes through that. Probably every single 2/3 of society globally goes through that. Our leaders go through that, and basically everybody watching everybody. However, there's some people that refer to targeted individuals as chosen ones. First of all, when I was in academia, I volunteered. And whenever we would sit for these conferences, they would tell us that we are the chosen ones. And we're chosen, you know, that thing that removes the hair, the facial hair? We were chosen with בחרו אתכם בפינצטה. There is no viable translation to that. Ask Siri. Anyway, so that was already funny back then. Because you understand that if you are chosen one, that means that you are subjected to a lot of horrors. Now, I've got nothing against Jesus. I have no idea how, from a man who disliked making a business out of religion, wanting to turn the other cheek, marrying a beautiful wife, Sophia, Mary Magdalene, raising a daughter, I don't know if he would be on Epstein list. He was a rabbi. Then we had Inquisition, that by the Romans he was crucified. I don't know if it was with the apostles, and then we have a Roman Catholic Church. I don't get it, but it seems to work. And Archangel Michael is lovely. That being said, the fallacy about targeted individuals as chosen ones that need to rediscover Jesus and stop looking at the stars is so that people won't see that they're targeted by specific astrological elections that they actually need to learn about. So some people may have the calling to Jesus, and I'm like, I was cool with Jesus until that dumbfuckery. And some people tend to that bias. Now, because I did not know I'm targeted individual, I was just trying to see what happens. I opened the chart. And nobody wants me to do astrology. Everybody worried. But if you predicted this, if you predicted that, or the way that you do this, the way that you do that, I'm like, the fuck with that. That balances my nervous system. I even got an only a clone could interpret the Pope's chart. So I was born a natural birth. I'm not saying that as pride or not. People are not to blame for how they were born. But that was a moment in my life. um, and I said probably you have, I think, Maghamu Nakshatra, and my astrology teacher, Lada Duncheva, who is also, she's Christian, and she combined the esoterics and astrology with being Christian. So she paved the path for a lot of astrologers that are having these problems. With the Jews, they see by the moon if there would be a war, but they can't. Okay, there is, for example, I think Kabbalistic astrology or Judaic astrology. I think there was a nice episode by yes, Chris Brennan, but he was interviewing Esoterica, actually religious Jew who's tending to the occult, and he talked about the prohibitions on reading astrology in Judaic tradition. And he said we see those prohibitions because they needed them, because people did astrology. Of course, he was persecuted as a child for for all the ritual abuse that does happen, but he wanted to discern the occult, and has a lovely channel that talks about meanings of esoterics. And this is also opening the mind for people, because I've seen people using the telema, not malefically, but then the dumb fuckery of targeting individuals in MK Ultra and stuff, that's Nazi occult. That's Aleister Crowley. And that is also done on ritual abuse and satanic abuse. And that is beyond horror. But then people say, oh, people will get to discover Jesus. Now, when it comes to the Templars versus the Templars, Baphomet versus monarchies that saw the monarch as a representation of God. The monarchs, the royal families, they saw the king or the queen as the representative of God. The Templars saw a God in every person, supposed gnosis, but both did ritual satanic abuse. They were intermingled, and then at the times like this with Pluto and Aquarius, they usually separate. In the beginning, when Julian Assange shared in the WikiLeaks that the previous Pope wanted to separate from the Templars, I said, bullshit, they work together. But it's actually the time where they do have wars, and it divides between those who support the monarchy. By the way, Voltaire was a monarchist. He escaped to England for freedom of speech. But the Templars, they call for decentralization, supposed democratization. Later they would have to provide. Later there would be the civil war, they would have to provide. But in the beginning they just thought it's going to be democracy, but not everybody will be free. And then came John Locke. And each and every one of us, man, woman, black, white, child, adult, owes their liberty and dignity in Western society to John Locke, coining the tabula rasa, and understanding that a man is born divine. There's a question about the birthright of cloned people, and there's actually a scientific answer for that, because the cloned people that did not go through ritual abuse did not develop the horrid attributes that they ascribe to cloned people, and scientifically proving in a beyond horrid way the concept of tabula rasa in John Locke. Now, it doesn't mean that people don't have their own attributes upon birth. Okay, they have a natal chart, they have natal promises, but people who will not go through ritual satanic abuse and will have overall good upbringing, or even okay upbringing, will not be in situation. And I used to say addicted to perpetuating evil. Basically, persistent trauma alters the nervous system. So when the person is recovering, from PTSD or CPTSD, for being assaulted, or for being a war veteran, or for coming back from hostage, we understand that when that person is in a situation where the program is for them to perpetuate evil, it's the same principle that the nervous system is altered by the torture. And this is also why it's difficult for a lot of people to attack the attackers. At the same time, the more we set boundaries to attack, the more we have points of interference. Basically, the less people will need to go on the guillotine. That is because the guillotine then was the monarchies, and the guillotine, but not only the monarchies, it was basically the lodges. Now, I said, where are, let's say, the presidents and prime ministers and the governments in all that? Anywhere you put them, there's the risk of the guillotine. This is why I said when Pluto ingressed into Aquarius, I said get out of the lodges if you can, and I said that for a reason. So when they target individuals, they call it spiritual warfare. They call people chosen ones. Falken, it's 1/3 of the population spying on 2/3 of the population. And just when that 1% wants to, 1/3, it's not 1%, that 1/3 wants to cash in on the promised money, it's a treason cult. Now, many of those, the target of targeting individuals, and this is how they got 1/3 of the society to do that, is to get people to be homeless, put them in concentration camps, or trafficking, and so on, or the gate projects, or targeting other individuals. And so they have this cycle. Homeless, targeter, the targeted becomes homeless, becomes the targeter. Now, eventually, everybody's watching everybody. They had it in the Soviet Union. I don't know what's happening there right now. It's like, but the thing is that they want to do that on a global scale. We have Abraham Lincoln saying, okay, and I remember that a while ago when Pluto ingressed to Aquarius, it said we can fool some of the people some of the time. That's Abraham Lincoln. And then I said, this is the time where they try to fool all the people all the time. And we can't fool all the people all the time. So, chosen ones, you're not God's chosen people to blah, 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 blah. God is not supposed to perpetuate an inquisition. What matters? Praxis. Child rights, women rights, labor rights, for men to be able to retire, for people to not be obligated to have children, for people to be able to raise children. Praxis. Life. They want you to fight about Jesus. They want you to fight about apartheid. And it says like, oh, it's racism, it's this, it's that. Doesn't matter. Because they're just going to make this tribe enslaving other tribes. Then it's not apartheid because it's not white people doing that. Praxis. Now, some people say, well, they're okay with beating the wife. They don't want any changes. Well, it is colonialist time. There will be changes. Also within the colonizing societies. So, here's about this, yes, chosen ones. Now, one aspect to what people call the chosen one, and they say, oh, that person has psychic abilities. It is. All society has psychic abilities. All society has psychic abilities. Some people have more psychic sensitivity, yes. I'm not anywhere near as psychic sensitive as other people on the planet. Eventually, the problem is not psychic sensitivity and chosen ones. They want people homeless, dead, slaves, and that's it. Another thing, real estate in China. It's one example. There is a bubble pop in the real estate in China. Predicted the bubble pop is indeed happening. Saturn, Neptune, Aries real estate. It is happening in China because it's associated. I don't know what's happening in Russia, but it's happening in China because it's more associated with the Saturn, Neptune. Now, China is also some lands in the United States. So there is reduction in the prices, but no real estate investor wants to invest in a surveillance state. What happens if you invest in a surveillance state? China will cash in on the taxation, will cash in on the income, and then confiscate your property. This is when you know, this is where you get people with Soviet lineage yelling, commies. But it's not like the capitalists are doing anything other with the capital. They will let you buy a property. What did they do in 2008? The subprime crisis. Lower the interest. Everybody buy housing. People take loans to buy housing. For money they don't have. You're not Kowalski. Kowalski writes it on the trust. You say, I want a trust. You don't want a trust. That's Trumpstein. That's Trumpstein. And it's a personality cult, so they all have the same mannerism. Ever seen Donald Trump and an Asian man having the exact same mannerism? It is a simulation. You know what happens, people? We all know what happened to those properties, right? And they want to frame the Cold War. They're having the commies again. Exact same scenario. It's exact same scenario. Uranus civil war clock. Now the moon is applying to oppose Uranus. The monthly civil war clock update. Now some people say, what about harvesting minerals in the Arctic? I think the coined term Gogumagog. This, you know how they're going to harvest the minerals from the Arctic? You put China, Russia, and United States in one spot, it's going to get atomically radiation into the soil just by the rage. And then you exert the minerals left. You mentioned the word Arctic. Bilderberg and Bell. I don't know. The world is changing. There are many opportunities, but also people need to be aware of the many scams, because manipulation of a currency, For example, the Nike story. China lowered its, a shout out to a financial historian, China lowered its currency rate, bought a lot of dollars, bought, people could buy Nikes in no price. Everybody buys Chinese products. Now, Trump wants to have local produce. That's why you see the death camps. Now, robots can do that, but it's expensive. So this is why they have targeted individuals. Now, that thing we see, would you invest in real estate in such a country? Nobody would. Well, one would say that's the point. They want people to despair of even trying to own a land or to live somewhere. What happened to people that despair? We know what the joke is. How do you say 9/11 in simple English? Fair trade. People lost their families, yes. Also in human trafficking and targeted individuals and surveillance states, people lost their families. Also in pharmaceutical companies that swipe under the rug millions of deceased people because of those products, people lost their families. Satanic ritual abuse, people lost their families. It's a disaster. But I think there isn't a single American that understands that I'm correct saying that. Particularly not when they check their 401k and discover that they've saved all their lives, kept their corporate job, was nice to the boss, on the account of the wife that wanted a divorce from them and says that my husband is a narcissist because they were a targeted individual. Then the wife became a targeted individual. Then the child became a targeted individual. And now the child needs to go to college. What money? Now, for those of you that feel bad about not taking financial responsibility over your life, it's like at least you were more you had economicity with the energy. When I was in academia, there was this nice lady that, two ladies that would help with arranging the budget. And because I was any help that was offered, I was like, everything. If I have opportunity to learn, to improve myself, to improve upon my skills, then I grab it in both hands. But we sat there looking, and every single thing that they would say, I was like, that's not reasonable. Because I'm your bones. And that's a bubble. Okay? It was a lovely thing. We were sitting with all the receipts, arranging them, having emotional support. They were really doing their best. You save some money, then you need to rent a flat outside a volunteering project. What money? You invest in courses, okay, relationship skills, communication skills, charisma skills. I know that the latter one failed completely. And okay, and then you try to basically apply those skills. And then there is COVID, targeted individuals, astral rape. What happened? I was just taking financial responsibility, retrieved my credit score, everything fine. Boom! They don't want people to have. At first, I thought it's only women. It's not only women. They don't want people to have financial freedom. Why? Over nothing. It's dumb from the get-go. Those people are addicted to torturing infants, okay? They're not rational players. They're not, they don't know. They don't know what they're doing. They're ruining every single thing. And they now the more a person goes through being tortured and perpetuating torture, the more neurodivergent they become. So they glitch more, and some of them get assassinated because of that. And not only that they glitch more, they are more sensitive. Neurodivergent person is more sensitive to the harm of the inorganic frequencies. Boke. Now we the people are supposed to fix that. I don't know how to fix that.